This is the Royal Report.
Good evening, welcome to the Royal Report. I'm Caroline DeRusso, and here's what we've got coming up on our show tonight. Now, King Charles' cancer diagnosis, it shocked the globe. Well, his former butler will join us shortly to discuss how the royal family is dealing with it all. The first official statement from King Charles since his diagnosis was released just this morning. Russell Myers joins us from London to give us the details. And Prince Harry has finally settled his phone hacking case against a British tabloid, and we have all the latest for you here tonight. Well, it's been a week of high drama with the Windsors. Honestly, it never ends. Now, we learned on Monday that the King had been diagnosed with cancer, and it was discovered during his routine surgery for an enlarged prostate. And just when we all thought that the royal family was stretched a bit thin, well, it became stretched just that little bit more. Anyway, this was the reaction on the ground.
My thoughts are with him, with the family.
Someone who a lot of people take great comfort in, and I do too, and I think I'm sure he'll fight it.
That's so sad. I mean, you would think that of anybody, but I wish him well.
I pray that he will recover.
Absolutely terrible. Not the news that I would have expected today.
Now, the Speaker of the House of Commons in the UK, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, he sent his best wishes.
Our thoughts are, of course, with His Majesty and his family, and with all wish to send him our very best wishes for the successful treatment and a speedy recovery following tonight's news.
As did the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
We hope for King Charles, for His Majesty and for all of their family, all of the very best. We want to see His Majesty return to full duties as soon as possible.
Now, even the recalcitrant Prince Harry made a dash across the Atlantic to see his father. Now, last week on the show, I said this in my editorial. Hopefully this year will be different. Maybe King Charles's health scare has made Harry realise there are more important things in life than throwing barbs at your own family for commercial gain. Now, we did know about the King's cancer diagnosis at that stage, but boy, did those words become prescient rather quickly. Of course, Harry visiting his father for such a short time and on such short notice has naturally raised more questions than provided meaningful answers. A 24-hour return trip, spending 45 minutes or perhaps even less, depending on which report you read, with the King was always going to be received with a degree of scepticism. And yet that's exactly what happened. And the questions, well, they continue. Now, our first guest, Grant Harold, is a man who knows King Charles personally. He worked as his personal butler between 2004 and 2011. During this time, he got to know the royal family and the now King very well. Grant Harold joins me now. Thank you so much. Now, look, so much recent upheaval in the royal family in recent weeks, and now the King's cancer diagnosis. How will the family be holding up?
I think obviously it's quite a big thing because we haven't had a monarch actually discuss such a serious condition with their health. And the rest of the royal family, like any other family, would be shocked, obviously want to support the King, the father, the grandfather. But at the same time, the thing about the royal family is it just keeps running. You know, they are a family, but they also are the monarchy. And even when things like this happen, they just carry on. I mean, look at the late Queen. Even in her last year of her life, she was still carrying on her duties. So they have this amazing inner determination, like many millions of other people that suffer from cancer do as well. They are the same. I always say the royal family are the same as you and me, but obviously it's slightly different due to who they are.
Now, the royal family has traditionally been quite secretive about health matters. So why do you think the King chose to disclose his diagnosis? And do you get a sense for the severity of the diagnosis? Because that hasn't been entirely clear.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that obviously the King has discuss this because, as I said, in the past, we don't really have members of the royal family discussing their health issues. I mean, even look at the Princess of Wales, who's recently been in hospital as well, and no real updates or information was given other than the time frame of her recovery. So it's quite interesting that the king has decided to speak out, and I'm kind of wondering if he's done it in a way to kind of show that the modern royal family, to an extent, are willing to share this kind of news. And really importantly, it's been noted here in the UK, and I'm sure in other countries as well, there's been a huge increase in people researching cancer on the NHS website. Oh, even when he had the prostate examination for the enlargement, when he went in for that, there was a huge increase in that. So I think they're aware that when they kind of discuss private issues to them, it generates a lot of interest, and people then start looking these conditions up, which isn't a bad thing at all.
No, it's not a bad thing at all, and any sort of advocacy is important, particularly in the area of healthcare. Do you think that the diagnosis, but perhaps without any further information, do you think part of that is the king perhaps not wanting people to worry too much?
Possibly. I mean, I was asked the other day if I think the king plays it down, and who knows? I mean, the reality is we don't really know what type of cancer. We don't know the grade or anything. We don't know anything really, other than he has obviously got it and he's having treatment for it. And the king is somebody who he doesn't like, from my memory, he doesn't like causing any kind of panic or unnecessary worry. He's a very calm, he's a very relaxed individual behind closed doors, doesn't like any fuss, and got a great sense of humour. And this kind of thing, if I can use the expression, you'll kind of take it with a pinch of salt, where even though it's a very serious thing, a condition, and obviously he's discussed it, but he'll also be in the mind that he's going to fight it, like, as we've said, many millions do, and will come out the other side. And I'm sure he's got this amazing determination that he will beat whatever it is, he will beat it, and will kind of carry on. And I think what's important is, from the hearing about cancer a lot recently and people discussing it, it's becoming more treatable. And I think that's what the king also wants to kind of show, that he's somebody that's got it and he's going to be treated. And God willing, he will get better and will carry on. But in the meantime, I think we won't see a huge amount of him, because obviously you don't really know what the effects are going to be. I can also say we don't exactly know what kind of treatment he might take, because the other thing I remember about the king, he's a huge believer in alternative medicine. So he goes down the traditional route of normal medicine, if I can say that, but he also likes traditional. And what I mean by that, he's always looking at alternative ways of treating things. He's got I love that opinion about him. I like the fact that, I remember, I'll give you an example, when I once had a cold and I was going to go and take the kind of paracetamol for the kind of headaches and things. And I remember his advice was some hot water, lemon, honey and whiskey, which being Scottish, I love this. And do you know what? It worked. So he does like trying alternative things.
Now, Prince William obviously will have to take a bigger role while the king is resting. Now, look, we do wish, obviously, the king the absolute and the speediest recovery, but is William ready to take over if he needs to, sooner rather than later, if reality comes to pass?
Prince William absolutely would be more than ready. I mean, interestingly, he's quite a lot older than his grandmother, who, when she became queen at 26, it's a huge age difference. So he'd be more than ready. But then, on saying that, a lot younger than his father when his father became king. But when are you ever ready to take that role on? It's one of those things that I don't think even the person knows until the day actually comes. But I feel sorry for him, because obviously his wife has not been well. His father is now ill and going through this treatment. And it was noted the other day, he was carrying out some investitures, and a lot of people have commented that they noticed he was swaying a little bit and he didn't look quite right, and he dropped one of the orders. He was doing investitures and he dropped one of them, which is very unlike him. And I've been asked, do I know what the reasons for that would be? And I think quite simply, it's the stress. He's probably extremely worried about his wife, who, as I said, is being unwell, and his father. So I'm sure it's as simple as that. And it's still a lot for him to take on. It's a lot at this moment in time, because he's having to step up to that role, and he will be undertaking duties on behalf of his father, but he'll be more than capable.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for those observations. Grant Harold, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks.
Now, joining us now is News Corp columnist Louise Roberts and news.com.au entertainment reporter Bronte Coy. Ladies, divine to have you on the show as always. Now, Bronte, Harry's trip to London has been front and centre of the royal family drama this week. And the question that always gets asked is, why didn't Meghan go?
Yeah, as you said, Prince Harry's attendance in the UK during this really dramatic royal week has been a major focus. So from the outset, I'd like to say I do think Meghan made the right call in not joining that and pulling more focus with her own attendance. The official word, of course, is that she had to stay back in California. They have 2 young kids under 5. That makes a lot of sense. It's an easy reason to use. It's the same one that was used for the coronation. I think it's also a good one because obviously there's a lot of tension in the family. Meghan hasn't seen most of the family members and certainly isn't on speaking terms, as we understand it, with anyone really bar Charles. So it was a good reason to stay away, but it also made a lot of sense as to why she didn't join Harry, which also, it was a 26-hour visit for him. So I do understand that, both of them being out of the country with 2 young kids is difficult. But yeah, I think this one was just for Harry to go and show his support for his dad and start to mend that relationship perhaps.
And Louise, it has been noted, and I think probably a little unfairly, Meghan was out and about just hours before Harry returned from the UK. She hasn't made a public statement about the King's health. How does it look?
Well, she was sort of photographed in Montecito with a big smile on her face. Now, we don't really know why she was smiling, and I agree it could be a bit disingenuous to somehow align that to news that her father-in-law is ill and her sister-in-law is recovering from surgery. I often find with Meghan, though, that she is very up, and if she does see a photographer, she will sort of bring out that big megawatt grin, sometimes to sort of create a bit of an allure that, she's got some great news or there's some fantastic announcement she's about to make to keep herself sort of relevant in that way. So I guess maybe a more sombre sort of demeanour in public may have been more appropriate, but I guess we were kind of spared anything sort of really set up like Meghan browsing get well soon cards or buying bunches of flowers or something like that. So I think I think she's just sort of BAU while waiting for Harry to come home.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Now, Bronte, also big news for Harry this week, settling his phone hacking claim against the Mirror Group newspapers. What's unfolded here?
Yeah, so this was Harry settling the remainder of his claim against MGN. So you may recall last year it made a lot of headlines. Prince Harry took the witness box, which was the first time a senior royal had done so in more than 100 years, and that saw him talk about his personal relationships in the broader context of him accusing MGN of phone hacking and obtaining information about his life in an unlawful way. So in December, he had a victory in that case, and then the remainder of the articles which he had claimed were obtained through unlawful information gathering have now been settled as well. So that brings this whole saga to a close. And Harry has been really outspoken about this cause. So it's a significant victory for him. But he has a lot of legal cases going on, so I'm not sure that it will be the end.
No, probably not. But then that brings me, Louise, to my next question. What's next for Harry in this space? He's now settled these 2 pieces of litigation recently. Does the war on the media continue?
I think, yes, despite settling the cases against Mirror Group, this is a crusade and it doesn't show any sign of ending soon. The mere fact that his own barrister, David Sherborne, outside the court spoke for the Prince, outside the High Court, and said, our mission continues. I mean, there are other cases and other actions at the moment which are live, but clearly Harry sees this as a personal mission to right the wrongs of the errant press. And I think he sort of sees it in a way as a bit of a lever to get public support as well, because it's a well-trodden target, the sort of evil, nasty tabloid press and the havoc they cause for his mother, the havoc they cause for him and his brother as well. But it's very interesting to see the difference in how Harry deals with the press not liking them and how William deals with the press not liking them, and who can blame either of them for having a very fractious relationship with the media, given what's happened in the past. But I think Harry is on a mission to be at war with journalists, which so far hasn't really worked that well for him despite the settlements. Whereas William, of course, has found a way to work with the media, and you'll see globally the press that Kate and William get is always fantastic because they know it's part of the job. They have to work with journalists, they have to work with photographers, and they have to at least build a relationship with these sort of big media outlets, not really be at war with them. That's not a good strategy.
No, and that's a very good observation. Now, Bronte, while the focus has been on King Charles this week and his health, obviously, the Princess of Wales has continued to recover from her surgery. How's she progressing?
I know it's hard to believe that it was all about Kate just a few weeks ago, and so much has happened since then. But at least on that front, we have some good news. Kate seems to be progressing really well. We already knew that her surgery was considered successful. She was in hospital for just under 2 weeks and has been recovering at Windsor. But in a new development and a really good sign, she's actually been able to leave Windsor for the first time and head to Sandringham, to their home, to her home with William and the kids for their half-term holidays. So she's still, according to her friend, she's still taking it very easy, as you can imagine, after a big surgery, and she's expected to be off work officially until after Easter. But the fact that she's been able to go and have some time at a home that they love so much with her family is surely a sign that things are going the way that they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Louise, I've only got maybe 30 seconds for you, but the royal engagements have continued. Prince William has attended the Air Ambulance Gala dinner. Can you give us a quick run through on this?
Yes, and didn't he wow the crowd? I mean, the creme de la creme of London society descended onto Raffles Hotel, which is in Whitehall, not far from Downing Street, and it was a fundraiser for the London Air Ambulance. They need to buy 2 new choppers, and of course William flew for the Air Ambulance in East Anglia when he was stationed there. So it's a cause really that it's very close to his heart. Of course, we had the future king, and we also had the King of Hollywood there, Tom Cruise, which added the real wow factor. And I think the fact that William really took it in his stride and sort of had a few jokes with Tom, sort of saying, you know, when we get these choppers, please don't go anywhere near them, because, you know, obviously with Mission Impossible, you don't really handle them too much with care. And of course, he was referring to a couple of scenes in the Mission Impossible films where, of course, the choppers collide and there's a big fireball on the side of a mountain. So, and Tom took that in.
Louise, I'm going to have to jump in there. Sorry.
All good.
Louise Bronte, thank you so much for joining us. Now, coming up, King Charles finally breaks his silence after his shocking cancer diagnosis. Russell Myers joins us from London, and he has all those details. Welcome back to the show. Joining us now is Royal Editor for the Daily Mirror, Russell Myers. Russell, some fresh news out from the palace today, an update on King Charles's health from the man himself. Tell us about it.
Well, hi, Cara. Yes, an update from King Charles, and a welcome one as well, I think, because we hadn't heard from him since his cancer diagnosis. Shockwaves all throughout the world, I think it's fair to say, after we heard that the King was suffering from cancer. But he's expressed his heartfelt thanks for all the messages, not only in the UK, but throughout the world, that people have been flooding in to give him their support, and saying that he'd been greatly encouraged to know that his openness as well in talking about his diagnosis has resulted in so many more people seeking out information to do with symptoms and signs of cancer, and also that his lifelong admiration for those suffering from cancer and people who are dealing with cancer patients every day, not only in the health service, but for charities, and helping their families had obviously greatly increased because of his diagnosis. So, as I said, a welcome update from the King today, and we certainly wish him all our best.
Absolutely. And Prince William and the Queen, look, they've also provided updates on the King this week during their various royal engagements. Everyone seems to be very much on the same page and doing their best, so to speak, to keep calm and carry on.
Well, it's the old adage, isn't it? And certainly straight out the late Queen's handbook of keeping calm, carrying on. And I think that they have to show a united front in this instance, because it's been quite a tumultuous few weeks. First of all, we had the Princess of Wales in hospital for an abdominal surgery. She was in hospital for a couple of weeks, taking an extended period of leave. Then the King was in hospital for a number of nights for an enlarged prostate. This secondary diagnosis, his cancer diagnosis, was picked up during that hospital stay. And I think, you know, that fair to say that really did sort of shock everybody into thinking, gosh, the slimmed down monarchy is looking rather threadbare at the moment. But it is definitely the senior royals, like the Queen, like the Prince of Wales, putting their best foot forward. And I think that we will start to see a bit of a calming over the next few weeks. Certainly, we're going to see Prince William back at work. The Queen is taking up more engagements. And William did say during a gala last week that the royal family really appreciated everyone's good wishes, all of the support for not only his wife, but his father as well. And like I said, I think it's very much about pulling together in this instance, not only for William, who's going to be taking on extra duties, but for Queen Camilla as well.
Now, it's been reported this week that Prince William has hired a former diplomat to assist him with his workload. Now, what's the significance of that sort of hire?
Well, it is an interesting appointment. I mean, it's straight out the Foreign Office, a chap called Ian Patrick. He's got a great pedigree of working for the FCO. He's a former diplomat. He's a consultant. And I think that what this really speaks of for Prince William is more of a global role. We've seen him being very statesmanlike on the world stage, whether that's visiting the Middle East, whether that's undertaking big tours. I think this is very important and very strategic from William, because we see him again on the world stage talking about the Earthshot project, this environmental prize, which is so dear to him, this big 10-year project to try and sort of launch like the moonshot project from the JFK era to try and save the planet's biggest conundrum. So let's wait and see. I think that whether William sort of branches out and creates this more sort of brand for himself will be quite interesting over the next few years and in his role as Prince of Wales and heir.
Now, in my editorial, I point to the fact that it's a little unusual for Harry to only have 45 minutes with the King as part of a 24-hour round trip from the States and London and back. What indication does that give you as to the relationship between Harry and his family? And is that an improvement in things, or does it still show those significant signs of strain?
Well, it's an interesting point, because you could look at it on either side of the coin, couldn't you? Because Harry flying over to the UK, 8,000 miles to only spend 25 hours in the country. You know, we're talking 45 minutes or 30 minutes with his father. It doesn't seem an awful long time at all. They hadn't come face to face for a good 16 months, because if you remember when Harry was over here for the coronation, he didn't spend any time with the King or the rest of the family. Again, very, very quick 24-hour trip in and out back to the US. However, it sort of half spoke to me about the seriousness of the King's condition, that Harry wanted to come over and be by his father's side. 30 minutes or not, 45 minutes or not, it's interesting that he took that action. However, you know, we understand that the relationships have been very, very fractured over the last couple of years. They still remain to be. There are an awful lot of ill feeling in the camp about whether people should be forgiving and forgetting Harry for writing the books, for doing the Oprah Winfrey interviews, for taking part in all these broadcasts. So whilst the King may be focusing on his rest, recuperation, his recovery from his cancer diagnosis, I think it'll be a very different ballgame for other members of the family. So Harry might still be out in the wilderness a little bit, and I suppose time will tell.
Russell Myers, as always, thank you so much for joining us. And that's the show for tonight. Thank you for joining us at home. Up next is Newsnight. Good night. We'll see you next week.